Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today we are going to solve biology paper 2 of May June 2024. The time limit for paper 2 is 1 hour 45 minutes. Okay. So let's start with the first question. Figure 1.1 shows two cells from the leaf of a plant observed using a light microscope. So yeah. Part A says complete table 1.1 to identify the structures labeled A and B and to describe the function of each structure. So yeah. So the structure A is chloroplast, and the structure B, as you can see, is the vacuole, the large central vacuole. The function of chloroplast is obviously it is used in the process of photosynthesis, whereas vacuole is used for storage and support of the plant. So, state 1 structure that is not visible in figure 1.1 but would be visible in the cytoplasm in an electron micrograph of the same two cells. So yeah. So there are some organelles which are very small, which the organelles include ribosomes and the mitochondria. There are other organelles as well which you cannot see under a light microscope, but they are visible under the electron microscope, like rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, etc. But these names are not included in the syllabus. So preferably you should write ribosomes or mitochondria, but obviously rough endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus may also be accepted. Okay. So question 2 says organisms can be classified into groups using the features they share. Part A. Part A. Fish are one of the main groups of vertebrates. State three main features used to classify an organism as a fish. So fishes have unique properties, which are they have gills, they have a scaly skin, they have fins. You can also write they have eggs with no shell, or the eggs are surrounded by a jelly, or the fishes are cold-blooded organisms. So yeah, so these may also be accepted, but the best answer would be gills, scaly skin, and fins. Okay, state two main groups of vertebrates other than fish. So we have mammals, and birds, obviously. Or you can write reptiles as well. So yeah. Or amphibians. If you write any two out of these four, you'll score full marks in this question. Swordfish are large fish that live in the ocean. They have a long bony extension to the skull called a sword. Figure 2.1 is a diagram of a swordfish. The binomial name of the swordfish is Ziphius gladius. Define the term species. So species are a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce a fertile offspring. Group of organisms that can reproduce to produce a fertile offspring. State the species name of the organism. So it's gladius. Swordfish swim near the surface of the ocean where the water temperature is low. During evolution, swordfish developed a muscle behind each eye that warms the eyes and the brain to a temperature above that of the ocean. This feature gives swordfish improved vision. Name the process that led to the evolution of the muscle behind each eye of the swordfish. And now this process is obviously natural selection. Okay, so as only the fishes with the eye muscles, the muscles which are behind the eye, had the benefit and they reproduced more. So most of the swordfish now have that muscles behind the eye, which gives them an advantage to survive. Suggest reasons why the evolution of this feature has adapted swordfish to survive in the ocean. So I'm going to write them down. Now, if they can see better, say, so they can obviously hunt more easily, say, and if they hunt more easily, they'll get more food for themselves. Apart from this, they can also avoid being eaten by predators, as they would be able to see the predators better. And obviously, when they have better vision, they can see their mates, they can choose their mates, and they can reproduce better than other swordfishes without the muscle. So if you write any 4 points from these 6, you'll get full marks in this question. Okay, so question 3 says complete table 3.1 using terms from the list below to match each description to a term. A form of gene that codes for one of the pair of contrasting features. obviously allele, a form of gene that always has an effect when it is present. The dominant gene, having two different forms of a gene for a particular feature, two different forms. This case is called heterozygous. And having two of the same form of a gene for a particular feature, this is called homozygous. And lastly, the combination of the alleles that an organism has in its own chromosomes. So this is called genotype. Okay. Figure 3.1 is a diagram of a part of a molecule of DNA taken from a bacterial cell. State the term which describes the shape of the DNA molecule. The shape of the DNA molecule is a double helix. Okay, so this word double helix is underlined in the marking scheme, so they won't accept any other answer apart from this. Say, so the shape of the DNA molecule is specific, it's a double helix. Most of the DNA in bacterial cells is found in one large loop in the cytoplasm. Name another structure in the bacterial cells which contain DNA. It's obviously plasmid. Again, any other answer rather than this wouldn't be accepted. State the name of the type of the molecule that is represented by the letters A, T, G, and C. These are clearly the nitrogenous bases. Base is the important word here. Outline the importance of the sequence A, T, G, and C in the DNA. Okay. So nitrogenous bases are very important, especially their sequence is very important. Why? Because nitrogenous bases are coding for the proteins, and the sequence of bases determines the sequence of amino acids in a protein, and eventually the sequence of amino acid will affect the shape of the protein, and the shape of the protein will affect the function of the protein. So that's why the sequence of nitrogenous bases is very important. Of amino acids and determines the shape or the function of protein. Okay. Question 4. Figure 4.1 is a simplified diagram of a nephron. Okay, so they are showing the glomerulus. The blood is moving in through the afferent arteriole. Structure P is the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so then they are showing the loop of Henle. Okay, the descending limb and the ascending limb. And this is the distal convoluted tubule. This was the proximal convoluted tubule. This is the collecting duct, and the urine is passed into the renal pelvis. From renal pelvis, the urine goes into the ureter and eventually stores into the urinary bladder. Then it is excreted out through the urethra. And this is the efferent arteriole. Okay. Identify each of the structures labeled P, Q, and R. So P was Bowman's capsule, Q was loop of Henle, and R is collecting duct. Name the organ which contains many nephrons. It's very easy question. It's kidney, obviously. Name the organ that stores fluid S before it is released from the body. Now I told you that fluid S is the urine. And the organ which stores it is urinary bladder. So you can write urinary bladder or bladder only. The word bladder is important here. Okay. Table 4.1 shows the composition of a sample of fluid S from a healthy person. The person that provides the sample of fluid S eats a balanced diet. State why it is important that urea is removed from the blood in the fluid S. Okay. So urea is a toxic metabolic substance, and if it accumulates in the body, it can lead to many severe issues. One of the problems it may cause is coma, which can eventually cause death. So it's very toxic. Use your knowledge of the function of a nephron to explain the concentration of each of the following components of fluid S. Okay, glucose enters the Bowman capsule, it enters the nephron, but it is removed back from the filtered content. So obviously it is filtered from here. Glucose will be filtered, but as it comes into the later part of the nephron, it is removed or reabsorbed back into the blood. That's why there is no glucose in the urine. And as far as protein is concerned, protein doesn't enter the Bowman's capsule. It is not filtered. So therefore there are no protein in the urine as well. Okay. So the reason that the protein is not filtered is that protein is basically a large molecule. and the pores in the Bowman's capsule or the glomerulus are not big enough to transport the protein molecule. So it's a large molecule. Explain what would happen to the concentration of ions in fluid S if the person drank a large volume of water several hours before the sample was collected. So yeah, so if the person drank a large volume of water, so the body will obviously does homeostasis, right? So to keep the concentration of water in blood or in the body constant, the body would remove most of the water, most of the excess water in the urine. So the fluid S, which is the urine, will have more water in it, and the ion concentration in it would be reduced. So the urine would be dilute. So moving on to question 5 now. Figure 5.1 is a diagram of a pineapple growing on a pineapple plant. Pineapple plants can be grown on farms by removing the suckers from a parent plant and planting these in the ground to form new plants. State the type of reproduction used to grow pineapple plants in this particular way. So, this is obviously asexual reproduction. State two advantages and two disadvantages of producing pineapple plants in this way. Um, you can write here the basic advantages and disadvantages of asexual reproduction, which are the advantages are it's rapid, so you can get pineapples quickly and easily, and you can and in this way many new plants can be formed, and you require only one parent plant. Apart from these two, you can obviously write other advantages as well if you want to, that the newly formed plants would have the same desirable features as their parents. The disadvantages are they may also have the undesirable features of the parents. And the one of the other disadvantages of asexual reproduction is that the plants would not be adapted if there's a change in environment. So Pineapples are an important crop in Hawaii, USA. They are introduced to Hawaii from South America. Birds called hummingbirds pollinate pineapple flowers. If pollinated, pineapple fruits develop and they contain hard, inedible seeds. If not pollinated, pineapple fruits develop without seeds. Hummingbirds are not found in Hawaii. Suggest why it is illegal to introduce hummingbirds into the Hawaii. Okay. So obviously if the hummingbird is helping to pollinate the flowers, so then in this case sexual reproduction would take place, and if sexual reproduction take place, this would lead to seed formation. And as the pineapples are being consumed by the humans, by the consumers, by the tourists that visit, so they don't like the inedible seeds, so it is harmful for the economy, it's harmful for the business. Moreover, hummingbirds may introduce other diseases, and they may compete with other species that are already living there, in terms of food or space, etc. Okay. So part B says pineapple contains a mixture of protease enzymes called bromelain. When bromelain is added to its substrate, a product is formed. Complete the word equation to show the substrate and the product. So, yeah. So a mixture of protease enzymes. So it's breaking down proteins. Protein is broken down into amino acids. Protein is the polymer and amino acids are the monomers. Okay, so the effect of changing pH on the activity of enzymes found in bromelain was investigated. The results of this investigation are shown. Okay, so the y-axis shows the percentage of maximum enzyme activity, and the pH is shown on the x-axis. As we increase the pH, the activity of the enzyme is increasing, and the highest activity is at pH 8, which is alkaline. Okay, because 7 is neutral and anything after 7 is alkaline. Okay. So to assess digestion, some people swallow bromelain in the form of powder with their food. Use the information in figure 5.2 and your knowledge of the human digestive system to discuss the effectiveness of using bromelain in this way. So in powdered form, the surface area of the enzymes increased, and there are more enzymes, and with the higher surface area they can perform more activity, they can perform higher activity due to more collisions with the substrate. The optimum activity, the highest activity will be shown at pH 8. So there's high activity if you give a range. So bromelain is active from pH 8 to pH 12. So yeah, even at pH 8 it's 70%, almost 70% active. So yeah, and at pH 12 it's 80% active. So yeah, so it has a very high range. They are not denatured easily, even due to the stomach acid, which has the pH 2. It would be most active in the small intestine as it has an alkaline environment. Okay. Increased surface area of powder. Higher activity. Or you can write higher collisions with the substrate. The highest activity will be observed at pH 8. The activity is generally very high across all pH range. You can add the range here as well, which is 3 to 12. So it doesn't get denatured easily. So you can write any 4 points from all of these points to get full marks in this question. Flowering plants are sometimes grown in soil to provide cut flowers that can be displayed. A gardener watered flowering plants with a fertilizer solution containing dissolved chemicals. Table 6.1 shows the information printed on the label of the container of fertilizer powder used to prepare this fertilizer solution. Okay, so there are nitrates, there are phosphates, sulfur, and magnesium. To prepare the fertilizer solution, the gardener dissolved 20 grams of fertilizer powder into 10 decimeter cube of water. Calculate the total mass of the sulfur in the fertilizer solution prepared by the gardener. Okay, so 20 grams of fertilizer powder. Okay. So these are the masses of substances in 100 gram of fertilizer powder. So in 20 grams we have to calculate the amount of sulfur in 20 grams of powder. So what we'll do is simply the answer will be, say, so this is a very easy question. You will simply divide 1 by 100 and you will multiply it with 20. You will get 1 mark for the answer, which is 0.2, and 1 mark is for the unit, which is grams. Explain which chemical component of the fertilizer solution is the most important to plants for making the leaves of the plant green in color. Okay, so the substance which is making the plant green is magnesium, okay, which is making the chlorophyll. So you'll get 1 marks for writing down magnesium, and you'll get another mark for telling that magnesium is in the chlorophyll. The production of enzymes. So enzymes are proteins by cells in the leaves of the plants. So for this you need nitrates, because nitrates will provide nitrogen for making proteins or amino acids. The chemical components of the fertilizer solution are absorbed by the root hair cells of the plants and are then transported to the leaves. Complete the word below to name the 3 main tissues in the pathway taken by the chemical components of the fertilizer solution from the root hair cells to the leaf. So the first letter is cortex. The second one is xylem, obviously, and lastly mesophyll. When flowers from the plants are cut and used for display, the leaves are removed before each stem is placed in water. A solution containing sucrose is often added to this water. Sucrose is not needed in fertilizer solution used to water plants growing in soil. Explain the benefit of providing sucrose to cut flowers. Okay. So when the flowers are cut, the leaves are removed as well. Say, and what are the leaves doing? The leaves are performing photosynthesis. So if the leaves are removed, now the flowers cannot obviously photosynthesize for themselves, but they require glucose, they require sucrose for respiration. So if you provide an external source of sucrose to them, the sucrose can move up the phloem, and it can provide the plant cell, the cells of the flowers, energy for respiration. It can provide energy through respiration. So there is no photosynthesis when the leaves are cut. The they are not able to produce sucrose. So when we provide them a solution with sucrose in it, the sucrose moves up the xylem, the phloem, and it is used for respiration, and the process of respiration provides energy. And in this way, the flowering plants or the flowers would last longer. Right. So you can write any 3 points to get the full marks in this question. Plastics are produced in very large amounts by the industrial processes around the world. These plastics can enter the ecosystem as pollution. The total mass of plastics produced globally in the year 2020 was 367 million tons. It is estimated that 3% of all plastics produced globally each year enters the ocean as plastic pollution. Calculate the total mass of plastic pollution that is estimated to have entered the ocean during the year 2020. So you have to calculate 3% of 367 million. So what you will do is simply do this and you'll get the answer 11 tons. Yeah, sorry, 11 million tons. Don't forget the million. Okay, so there is one mark for 11 and the other mark is for million tons. Part B says some packaging is made from biodegradable carbohydrates. Microorganisms break down larger carbohydrate molecules into smaller molecules. Identify this process and name one type of microorganism that is involved. A process in which the microorganism breaks down the larger molecule into smaller molecules is decomposition. And decomposition is done by either bacteria or fungi. Okay. Most plastics that enter ecosystem as pollution are non-biodegradable. Describe the harmful effects of non-biodegradable plastics on both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. So I'll write them down first, then I'll explain it to you. Okay, so the harmful effects of non-biodegradable plastics are, now the reason of those harmful effects is that these non-biodegradable plastics basically remain for a very long time, almost forever, right? Because they cannot be decomposed. So over a long period of time, they break into small, very small pieces of plastics called microplastics. These microplastics will suffocate the animals because this can injure the animals. Yeah, the larger particles of the plastic can trap animals, whether aquatic or terrestrial. The animals may eat it, leading to choking or blocking of the digestive tract, which can lead or which can cause several diseases in animals. These plastics can affect the whole food chains. For example, if you take example from here, that it's covering the plant and preventing the plant to photosynthesize from photosynthesizing. So this means that the plant wouldn't be able to photosynthesize as effectively, say, which could lead to the death of the plant. If the plant dies, what will happen? All of the organisms that were dependent in terms of food on the plant will now die as well because they aren't getting their food, right? So this affects whole food chains and whole food webs. Acha. If these plastics are burned, they'll produce toxic gases which can lead to air pollution, right? So this is it. If you write any 7 points from all of these points, you will get full marks for this question. Okay, so we are done with the paper. Thank you so much. Lafis.